Picture this: a medieval farmer standing in a frozen field, staring at a sky that promises nothing but snow. His family's survival depends on coaxing food from soil that seems determined to betray him. How did he do it? How did people in the Middle Ages grow crops in climates so brutal they'd make modern farmers quit? You're about to discover the ingenious, almost unbelievable tricks medieval farmers used to thrive against all odds. From secret soil recipes to mind-blowing crop hacks, these methods will leave you stunned and might even inspire your own backyard garden. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll never look at a medieval peasant the same way again. Let's dive into a world where survival was an art form. Imagine a winter so cold your breath freezes before it leaves your mouth. In medieval Europe, that was just another Tuesday. Yet somehow, farmers grew enough food to feed entire villages. How? One word: resilience. They didn't have tractors, weather apps, or chemical fertilizers. What they had was grit, observation, and a deep connection to the land. To understand their genius, let's start with the biggest challenge: the climate itself. Europe in the Middle Ages was no picnic. The period saw the Little Ice Age creeping in, with shorter growing seasons and unpredictable frosts. In places like northern England or the Alps, summers were short and winters were relentless. So, how did they grow anything at all? The answer lies in a mix of ancient wisdom and bold experimentation. Curious about the first trick they used to cheat the weather? Drop a comment below with your guess. I'm dying to hear it. The first secret was mastering the land itself. Medieval farmers didn't just plant seeds and hope for the best. They sculpted the earth to fight the climate. One of their most brilliant innovations was the raised bed. Picture long, narrow mounds of soil, elevated above the ground. These weren't just for show. In wet, cold regions like the Low Countries or parts of Britain, raised beds drained excess water, keeping roots from rotting in soggy soil. They also warmed up faster in the spring sun, giving crops a head start. Farmers piled manure and compost into these beds, creating a nutrient-rich powerhouse that could support crops even in short seasons. This wasn't guesswork. They observed how water moved, how frost settled, and adjusted their fields like engineers. Ever tried gardening in a tough climate? Share your own tricks in the comments. I bet medieval farmers would approve. But raised beds were just the beginning. Let's talk about crop choice, because these farmers were picky for a reason. They didn't have the luxury of growing delicate plants. Instead, they leaned on hardy, climate-defying crops like rye, barley, and oats. These grains could handle cold, wet conditions better than wheat, which was a diva by comparison. In mountainous regions like the Alps, farmers grew spelt, a tough-as-nails grain that laughed at poor soil and frost. But here's the kicker. They didn't just pick tough crops. They bred them to be tougher. By saving seeds from the hardiest plants each year, they slowly created strains that could survive their specific microclimates. It's like they were running a medieval genetics lab without even knowing it. Want to know which crop was the real MVP of the Middle Ages? Hit that like button and I'll spill the beans in a moment. Now let's zoom in on a technique that sounds like magic: companion planting. Medieval farmers didn't plant crops in neat, single rows like modern farms. They mixed things up, literally. They'd plant beans next to grains, or herbs like chamomile near vegetables. Why? Because they noticed certain plants helped each other. Beans, for example, fixed nitrogen in the soil, giving neighboring crops a nutrient boost. Herbs repelled pests or attracted beneficial insects. This wasn't just farming. It was an ecosystem. In places like medieval France, farmers grew Three Sisters-style systems. Corn wasn't around, so think beans, squash, and grains, where each plant supported the others. It's a method so effective that modern organic farmers are bringing it back. Have you ever tried mixing plants in your garden? Drop a comment with your favorite combo. I'm curious if it's one the medievals would have used. But what about when the climate was just too extreme? That's where medieval farmers got really creative. In places like Iceland or northern Scandinavia, where the growing season was laughably short, they turned to microclimates. They'd build stone walls around fields to trap heat, creating a mini greenhouse effect. In hilly regions, they carved terraces into slopes, which not only prevented erosion, but also caught more sunlight. Some even planted near rivers or lakes, where the water moderated temperatures, preventing early frosts. These weren't random choices. They came from years of watching the land, passing knowledge down through generations. It's humbling to think about, isn't it? These farmers were out here solving problems NASA would admire. What's the most extreme gardening hack you've ever heard of? Share it below. Let's see if it tops these. Let's shift gears to another game changer: crop rotation. You might have heard of this, but medieval farmers took it to another level. They didn't just rotate crops to keep soil healthy. They used it to outsmart the weather. The famous three-field system was their secret weapon. Here's how it worked. One field grew a winter crop, like rye, another grew a spring crop, like barley, and the third was left fallow to recover. This spread out the risk. If a frost killed one crop, the other might survive. Plus, the fallow field was grazed by animals, whose manure fertilized it for the next season. It was a closed-loop system that maximized output even in bad years. In places like Germany, this system doubled yields compared to older methods. Mind-blowing, right? If you could steal one medieval farming trick for your garden, would it be this one? Let me know in the comments. But crops weren't the only thing medieval farmers grew. Livestock was their backup plan when the weather turned ugly. In harsh climates, animals like sheep, goats, and pigs were lifesavers. They could graze on marginal land where crops wouldn't grow, and they provided meat, milk, and wool. Farmers in places like the Scottish Highlands integrated animals into their fields, letting them graze on stubble after harvest, which fertilized the soil. They also practiced transhumance, moving herds to higher pastures in summer and back to valleys in winter to make the most of the land. This wasn't just survival, it was strategy. Animals and crops worked together like a well-oiled machine. Ever raised animals alongside a garden? Tell me about it below. I bet there's a medieval farmer nodding in approval. Now, let's talk about a tool that changed everything: the heavy plow. In Northern Europe, with its thick, clay-heavy soils, early plows were useless. Enter the heavy plow, a beast of a tool pulled by oxen. It could slice through tough soil, turning it over to release nutrients. This opened up new lands for farming, especially in wet, cold regions like the Netherlands. But here's the cool part. Farmers didn't just use it, they improved it. They added wheels for mobility and adjusted the blade for different soils. It's like they were tinkering in a medieval workshop. This plow, combined with better harnesses for oxen, meant they could farm more land, even in climates that seemed impossible. Want to know how this one invention reshaped medieval Europe? Smash that subscribe button, and I'll dive deeper in my next video. Water management was another area where medieval farmers shone. In flood-prone areas like the Rhine Valley, they built dikes and canals to control water flow. In drier regions, like parts of southern France, they dug irrigation channels to bring water to fields. These weren't simple ditches, they were engineered systems, often shared by entire communities. In England, farmers used ridge and furrow fields, where raised ridges shed water into furrows, preventing crops from drowning. These systems show how well they understood their environment. They didn't fight the climate, they worked with it. Have you ever had to manage water in your garden? Share your story in the comments. Let's compare notes with these medieval pros. But what about when all else failed? That's when medieval farmers turned to faith, folklore, and a bit of superstition. They'd pray to saints like Saint Isidore, the patron of farmers, for good harvests. They'd also use rituals, like planting on specific moon phases or burying charms in fields. While we might chuckle at these today, they reflect how deeply farmers cared about their crops. They also relied on community. Villages shared tools, labor, and knowledge to survive tough years. In a way, this social network was their ultimate climate hack. It's a reminder that no one farmed alone. What's the weirdest gardening tip you've ever tried? Drop it below. I'm betting some medieval farmer tried it first. As we wrap up, let's reflect on what we've learned. Medieval farmers didn't just survive impossible climates, they thrived. They sculpted the land with raised beds and terraces, chose crops that defied the odds, and built systems like crop rotation and water management that rival modern techniques. They integrated animals, innovated tools like the heavy plow, and leaned on community when times got tough. These weren't backward peasants. They were masters of their environment, turning hostile climates into opportunities. Their methods are so effective that many, like companion planting and crop rotation, are making a comeback today. So, next time you're struggling with a tricky garden, think of those medieval farmers. They'd probably tell you to watch the land, experiment boldly, and never give up. Here's your challenge. Try one of these medieval hacks in your own backyard. Maybe build a raised bed, mix some companion plants, or even rotate your crops. Share your results in the comments. I'd love to hear how it goes. And if this video blew your mind, give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend who loves history or gardening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss my next dive into the wild world of the Middle Ages. What medieval topic should I tackle next? Drop your ideas below and let's keep this journey going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.